But heading overseas again now, the President of the United States has signalled that he will urge more Middle Eastern leaders to make a military contribution to the fight against Islamic State militants. In a speech at the Pentagon, Barack Obama said progress in the campaign to destroy IS needs to be faster. But he also stressed that the number of airstrikes in Syria and Iraq has increased recently to close to 9,000. Anne Barker has our report.
Barack Obama says the US is hitting Islamic State harder than ever. There have been nearly 9,000 airstrikes against ISIS targets in Syria and Iraq, and more in November than any month since the US-led campaign began last year.
Every day we destroy as well more of ISIL's forces. Their fighting positions, bunkers and staging areas, their heavy weapons, bomb-making factories, compounds and training camps. In many places, ISIL's lost its freedom of maneuver, because they know if they mass their forces, we will wipe them out. In fact, since this summer, ISIL has not had a single successful major offensive operation on the ground in either Syria or Iraq.
The US president also listed the ISIS fighters killed in the airstrikes: leaders, commanders, killers, among them Mohammed Emwazi, the British fighter who beheaded American hostages, Haji Mutaz, Islamic State's second-in-command, Junaid Hussein, a top online recruiter, and most recently the ISIS finance head Abu Saleh.
The point is, ISIL leaders cannot hide, and our next message to them is simple: you are next.
President Obama says ISIS has now lost 40% of the populated areas in Iraq it once controlled, as well as thousands of square miles of territory in Syria.
In recent weeks, we've unleashed a new wave of strikes on their lifeline, their oil infrastructure, destroying hundreds of their tankers, trucks, wells and refineries.
But Barack Obama says progress still needs to be faster, and he's revealed the US Defense Secretary Ash Carter will soon head to the Middle East to muster more support in the fight from the region.
He'll depart right after this press briefing to work with our coalition partners on securing more military contributions to this fight.
President Obama hasn't spelt out where those military contributions might come from, but there have been repeated calls for more Arab states to get involved in the anti-ISIS campaign. Tobias Feakin is Director of National Security at the Australian Strategic Policy Institute in Canberra.
What Obama is trying to avoid is having mass US service personnel on the ground in Syria and or Iraq. And so always he has placed at the heart of it that if there is going to be any kind of military involvement, ultimately that should come from regional partners. But that comes with just incredible complexity as well, because of the way that various countries around the region are influencing the conflict within Syria itself.
What appetite is there among nations beyond, say, Jordan, Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, that are already playing some sort of role in the fight against ISIS?
Well, I mean, it's almost a game of proxy that's taking place currently in the Middle East. The most heavily involved nation of any kind currently in the more overt fashion would be Iran, who sponsor Hezbollah. Hezbollah fighters are very clearly involved with Assad's government. Iran are also supporters of Assad's regime, so they are playing a key role there. You also have the Saudis, who are directly opposed to Iranian influence in the region, and Saudi Arabia has its own issues with ISIL as well. So there's a reason for Saudi Arabia to get involved, but it's just not keen to show its cards fully. Now, for those other states, there clearly is influence that they are exerting within the region, often through finances, weapons flows that flow into the hands of certain groups within the region. So that's their way of influencing the conflict via proxy. So really it's a fact that a lot of these countries don't want to be directly involved. But ultimately, and I would agree with Obama in this sense, that ultimately the solution has to come from the near region. But it's just not clear that there is that appetite there.
That's Dr. Tobias Feakin speaking to Anne Barker. And Saudi Arabia's government has now announced a military alliance of up to 34 Arab countries will be formed and will include Jordan, Qatar and Pakistan.